there's a lot of issues here, a lot of very good topics, a lot of things happened in this week's Torah portion. We learned last time about how the Jews approached the sea. They went through the sea. God drowned the Egyptians in the sea. They came out on the other side of the sea. God washed up all of the treasures that the Egyptian soldiers brought with them because they thought they were going to kill the Jews and make a big party afterwards. And when the Jews saw this, so they sang a big song, and we're going to skip that song. We're not going to learn it. Not because it's not important or because it's not beautiful. It is, and it's very beautiful. It's very meaningful. There's a lot of explanations there, but there's other things in this week's Torah portion, and if we spend too much time on that, we won't get to it. And one of the things that there is in this week's Torah portion is the manna. Manna fell from them from heaven. Nowhere in the Torah is it called man. It's called man. Man. So from now on, we're going to refer to it as man, which that's what it is, man. How in the world they got the word manna? I don't know. There must have been somebody sitting around over there and making up these weird translations, like Deuteronomy. How does Deuteronomy come from Devorim? I guess Deuto is double, so Mishnah Torah. How did they get that from? I don't know. And from Bereshit, they got Genesis. Why couldn't they just call it the Hebrew names? But anyway, that's the way it goes. So the same thing as Elijah, right? There's Elisha and Elijah the prophet. Eliyahu, his name is Eliyahu. How did they get Elijah from Eliyahu? Anyway, we can go on like this for a long time, but that's what they did. Anyway, let's do our part to correct this injustice and not call it manna anymore. We'll call it man. All right, we'll call it man. So God rained down man for them, and then we'll see afterwards. There wasn't water, and that's the thing about God told Moses to strike the rock, and he struck the rock, and water came out. And finally, there's going to be the war with Amalek. So there's a lot what to talk about over here, but let's at least do the man first. The man, right? Falling man. The Jewish people are in the desert, and what did they eat when they left Egypt? What did they eat? So first of all, they had a lot of things to eat. They took a lot of animals with them. They had animals with them, but bread they didn't have. There was a very limited supply of bread because they didn't take out wheat. They took out dough. It says they took out dough and they cooked it on the way. And that didn't last them very long. We'll see that it lasted 1 month. After the month, they didn't have any bread. So they wanted bread to eat it. And then they started complaining and yelling and screaming, hey, we want bread, we want bread. And then they accused God of attempted murder. We're going to see it gets strange. The perpetrators of all this discord mainly it was Datan and Aviram. We see the same Datan and Aviram. They're the ones, eventually they're going to get killed together with Korach. But any chance there is to make trouble for Moses, they are there. They are right there. And they were the ones that informed on Moses when Moses killed the Egyptian that was beating the Jew. And they informed on him. Moses had to run away. So here we go. So the Jewish people, they left Egypt. They crossed over the sea. The Egyptians were all killed. They left tremendous riches. Over there, there's a pasuk that says, "Vayasa et ha'am." The Moses had to force the people to move from the Red Sea because they were too busy gathering the riches. They had all sorts of riches, and they didn't need riches. The Kid says that every Jew came out of Egypt with, 70 mules laden with riches that they took out from the Egyptians. Anyway, but so they wanted more riches, but that's okay. But they didn't want to go any further. They just want to stay there and get the riches. What they would needed the riches for, I have no idea. They had everything that they need. It was in desert. But the original plan was they were supposed to get the riches and immediately go into the land of Israel. So, okay. Let's just figure this out. Anyway, so the Jewish, they get out. And or just a little bit. So it says they got out and they got the Torah and they're traveling. It says here it is, Vayasa Moshe et Yisrael. Moses forced the Jewish people to travel. 1 second. Yeah. He forced the Jewish people to travel from Yam Suf, and Rashi says he moved them al korcham, against their will, because the Egyptians, they decorated their horses and their chariots and everything with all sorts of gold and silver and precious stones, because they figured they were going to have a big party afterwards. And the Jewish people, like some people go crazy about hubcaps. And they go, hey, well, it's not a new thing. The Egyptians also, they put hubcaps on their horses. They didn't put it on their wheels, the chariots. But anyway, they put it on their. Maybe they did. In any case, it says there was more riches on the sea than they took out of Egypt. And therefore, the Jewish people, they wanted to gather up all this riches. They didn't want to leave it over there, and God had to move them. To learn a little bit of merit, to excuse the Jewish people, the fact is that all this riches was really, like it says in Chassidut, sparks of holiness. I don't know if that's what the really motivation, but at least we can say the sparks of holiness. So the Jewish people wanted to utilize that, and Moses realized that they had reached their quota of sparks of holiness. They didn't need more. Okay, so they went to Marata. They couldn't drink the water in Mara because it was bitter. It was bitter. And the people complained to Moses and said, what are we going to drink? There's no water. We're in the middle of the desert, and there's nothing to drink. But Yitzhak El Hashem, so Moses cried out to God, but Yoreu Hashem ate, and God showed him a piece of wood. Vayashlech el hamayim, he threw the wood into the water, v'yimteku hamayim, and it sweetened the water. Sham, there, some lo choku mishpat, he gave them laws and statutes. And there he tried the Jews. What type of statutes did he give? This is before the giving of the Torah, right? They crossed over the Yam Suf. This was 7 days after they left Egypt. And this was 3 days. Here, Shlosh says they went, Shlosh Shamim. They went to the desert, 3 days in the desert, and they didn't find any water, 3 days. So they're traveling for 3 days. Here, by the way, it says, this is where we learn from that we read the Torah in public at least once every 3 days. We don't let 3 days go by without reading the Torah. So since the time of Moses, the Jewish people have been reading the Torah. I mean, after they received it, they read it on Sunday, and then they read it again on Monday. I'm sorry. They read it on Saturday, on Shabbos. Then they read it again on Monday, and they read it again on Thursday. Then they read it again on Shabbos. So it ends up there's never 3 days that pass by without Torah. And this, by the way, also is a total disproof to those people that say that the Jews somehow lost the Torah. That's sort of what Islam is based on, that the Jews lost the Torah. The Jews have been reading the same exact Torah for 3,300 plus years, 3 times a week, at least. So, all right. So it said that they went for 3 days. So God showed them he showed Moses a stick, and he threw it into the water, and he gave him he gave them laws. What laws did he give them? It says he gave them the laws of Shabbat. He gave them the laws of the para aduma, of the red cow. Why? Because when they were going to go into start making sacrifices, they were going to have to purify themselves. This is gave them the red cow law. I don't know if you ever read the law of the red cow, but anyway, the red cow is it's a law that if a person touches a dead body or comes in contact with a dead body or is in a tent where there was a dead body, together with the dead body, or he walks over the body, in any case, the pure person can never for the rest of his life go into the holy temple or make any sacrifices. Can't do it. Unless there's one way out, he has to take the ashes of the red cow, which was specially prepared. There's a whole tractate in the Gemara about this, and take the ashes and especially and it's sprinkled on him. on the 2 times once on the 3rd day, and the 7th day counts, and then he becomes pure again. So they have to find the laws of the red cow and laws of money cases, right? Damages. And then he tested them. How did he test them? Because they didn't talk to Moses nice. They said, listen, God took them out of Egypt. He gave them everything. All of a sudden, they didn't have a little bit of water, and they're complaining about water. We'll see. It gets worse. With the bread, it's much worse. God said, if you listen to me, and you do what's straight in God's eyes, and you do his commandments, and you do all of his statutes, all the bad things and the diseases that I put on Egypt, I won't put on you, because I am God, your healer. You won't get sick at all. There won't be any of them. Okay, here we go. Ready? This is where I really wanted to start the class, but let's go. It was too interesting, the thing about the bitter water and Moses throwing the stick in. First of all, you see that the Jewish people, they need Moses. Without Moses, they wouldn't have had any water. They wouldn't have gotten out of Egypt, that's for sure. But here they go. Pray to God yourself. What do you have to need Moses for? So we see that they did need Moses, and that Moses' prayers are more genuine. He cares more about the Jewish people than they care about themselves. And so he has answered. By Yavo Elima, they came to a place in Elima, and there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. They camped there on the water. What do we care? How many palm trees there were? Come on. There was 3 million people. What difference is 70 palm trees? So obviously we see there's some sort of secrets over here going on. And it says the 12 wells of water, this corresponds to 12 tribes. Each tribe got his own well. And there were 70 date trees corresponding to the 70 elders of the Jewish people. Okay. Vayisum Elim, they went from this place of Elim, where they just were with the water and the wells, and all the Jewish people came into the desert Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. Sinai is the Mount Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month of the Jewish year is called Iyar. The first month is called Nisan. That's when the Jewish people got out of Egypt. The month after that is called Iyar. On the 15th day, when they left Egypt, what is he telling us this for? He's telling us because this is the day when the manna stopped. I'm sorry, the man stopped. Niparish Hayom. Why? Because Shabol Bayom Kolsa Harara, it stopped the bread Shotzium Mitzrayim that they took out of Egypt. V'utzrachom man, and they needed the man. Lamana, so we learned that they ate what was left over, the dough and the bread and the matzah that they took out of Egypt, 61 meals. And there was 2 meals a day for 30 days. Vayered lam betet zayin iyar, and the man came down on tet zayin iyar, right? Man is manna, right? Manna, let's not get, the manna came down on tet zayin iyar, just to get used to it, man. And the first day, this was Sunday. Like it says in Masechta Shabbos, it says in the Gemara in Shabbat. Here's an interesting thing where it says, why is it called the desert of Sin? Sin is the gematria, the same gematria of Ha-Sneh, of the burning bush. That's why the mountain is called Sinai. So it's Sin, right? And the burning bush is from the Sneh, and it's called Sinai because of the 10 commandments that were given there. So it's Midbar Sin, put another Yud over there, and you get Sinai. So the desert was Sin, which is the same numerical value as Ha-Sneh, the bush that was burning, the bush. And that's why the mountain is called Sinai, because you got Sin with a Yud at the end of it, that's Sinai. Okay. It says that they went to Elim, to the desert of Sin. This is what it says in the prophet. It says, you went after me in the desert. God said, I remember you, you went after me in the desert. Okay. The The Jewish. So what happened? The bread stopped. The manna didn't come down. So they have one day. What's going to be? They don't know what's going to be tomorrow. All the bread finished. Last meal. V'yilonu kol Yisrael. All the Jewish people complained to Moses and to Aaron in the desert. Why? Because the bread was finished. Vayomer alayim bnei Yisrael. And the Jewish people said, and we're going to see what these Jewish people are. First of all, it was Datana, Aviram for sure. But we're going to see. And there's another opinion. Oh, if we had only died in Egypt. Because over there it was the flesh pot. We could eat as much bread as we wanted. Remember Egypt? It was wonderful. You took us out to this desert. You're going to kill all of us here in hunger. So they're accusing God of attempting murder. That's what Rashi says. If it only had been that we died in the desert, so we wouldn't die here. Explain another place, at least over there, we would have died in Egypt. We would have died satisfied. Why should we die? Now they weren't even hungry yet. They had just finished their last meal. They were just worrying about tomorrow. They had full stomachs. What were they worrying about here? The HaChaim says, from here you learn that a person who speaks Lashon Hora, the ones who were saying these terrible things, these were the people that weren't working. These were the policemen, the Jewish policemen that the Egyptians put over the Jews to work. And they didn't really suffer. And maybe we can also say that this was probably somehow or other was mixed in, Datan and Aviram were mixed in over here. And they were saying, oh, it was so good to us in Egypt. Who was it good to in Egypt? It says that the Jewish the policemen, they kept them satisfied. Like in the concentration camps, they had the capos or whatever. That's what the Sforno says. If God wanted to kill us, so at least he could kill us with a full stomach. Back there in Egypt. They said it before, there's no graves in Egypt. God said to Moses, behold, I am going to rain down from them bread from the heaven. Now, it really wasn't bread. It was really brought down to them in raw state. It says that the tzaddikim could eat it immediately, but we'll talk about that. I hope we'll get to it. I'm going to give them bread from heaven. And people are going to go out and they're going to gather it every day. In order that I'm going to test them if they're going in my Torah or not. What type of a test is? It says if they do the commandments, which are there, that they don't, it's going to see. It says that everybody has to collect exactly the same amount and you shouldn't take any more. And also don't go out on Shabbat. That's what Rashi says. The Ramban disagrees. Omer, I'm sorry. Here. If they do the commandments, it said, that's what Rashi says. Rashi says that I'm going to, God, he explains, what is God saying? I'm going to test the Jews, says God. Rashi explains, I'm going to test the Jews what? To see if they leave any of it over, if they go out and gather too much, or if they go out on Shabbat to gather it. That's what Rashi says. But says the Ramban, I don't agree. This is what was the test? The test was that, and what it says, we're going to see later on, that it says, in Deuteronomy later, God said, I'm going to give them, Moses is reminding the people, don't you remember how good God is? He gave us man in the desert that our forefathers did not know, in order to punish, to make us suffer, in order to test us. What was the test? The test is that when they got this man, they really weren't holding any food. They couldn't see what they were eating. It says it had all the tastes, but they couldn't see it. And there was nothing else in the desert that they could eat, right, except for the manna. Of course, they brought the animals with them and everything, and they didn't know in the beginning. They never heard this. They had never seen such food like this, and their forefathers never heard of it. and it came down every day, and they were complaining. Now, what happened over here? What did we just finish learning? The Jewish people complained because their bread, the bread that they took out of Egypt, ran out, right? The bread that they took out of Egypt, it ran out. And so therefore they started complaining. So God said, I'm going to send you bread. And you know what's going to be? Every day it's going to run out. Every morning you're going to wake up and you're not going to have any bread. You're not going to have anything at all, right? You're going to have to go out and hope that it came down in the fields. So the same thing that the Jewish people complained before is the same thing that God is going to give them now. Oh, Balatorim, 1 second. The Balatorim says, I'm going to test them. It says, what does it mean, test them? There's a saying that says in the Midrash, Lo nitna Torah ela lo'ochli aman. Only people that ate the man were able to receive the Torah. The man had certain purifying effect on the Jews so that they would have more trust in God. And that's the essence of what the Torah is. Okay, and God says, and it will be that on Friday, you'll prepare everything and you'll bring it, and it'll be double portion on Friday, and you'll gather it up every single day after that. You're going to gather up the manna. On Friday, it's going to be double. That's what it is. Okay. Says the Sforno, even after they prepare it and they boil it or whatever they do, nothing is going to get lost. It'll still be the double portion. Nothing will go away when they boil it. And that's what they say. They should prepare them. You should prepare it. What does it mean prepare it? It's going to have a really different taste on Shabbat. So get ready. Therefore, you should be quick and finish it all before Shabbat begins. You have to finish it before it's forbidden to cook on Shabbat. Moses and Aaron said to all the Jewish people, okay, in the nighttime, you're going to know that God is the one that took you out of Egypt. Why? In the air, you're going to know. We're going to see why. And in the morning, you're going to see the glory of God because he heard your complaints. Kavod Hashem, heard your complaints on God. And who are we that you're complaining to us? Anachnu ma. Who are we? Rashi says, the Ramban. Ramban says, he brings the explanation what the Ibn Ezra says, and he says, Anachnu ma, he says, and we, what can we do? Right? Well, all we did is what we were commanded. Ramban said, I want to add a little bit onto that. I don't agree with this. And he said, rather, what he was trying to say is like this. Who are we that you're complaining to us? We took you out of Egypt. Everything that we did was like nothing. Iron. We're zero. And everything we did is like empty wind. You want to complain to something, complain to God. God was the one that took you out of Egypt, not we. In the Mechilta, it says, what are we worth that you are standing and complaining on us? We're nothing. We're absolutely nothing. In other words, everything we did was only what God told us to do, and we have no will of our own. We're just messengers, It's like the postman brings you a foreclosure or something, and you beat up the postman. The postman is just doing his job. He doesn't know what's in the envelope. Same thing, Moses. We're just messengers. By Yom Moshe said, God is going to give you in the evening meat to eat. What type of meat? They're going to give these birds called slav. And bread is going to be in the morning that you're going to be satisfied because God has heard your complaints that you're complaining on him. And who are we? Not on us should you be complaining, but to God. Moses said to Aaron, tell all the Jewish people, get close to God because God heard your complaint. What does it mean get close to God? Remember, there was a cloud of God that proceeded in the daytime to show them where to go. So it says, go close to this cloud. Get close to the front of the cloud that's in the direction of the desert. They weren't there yet. Moshe, Aaron, when Aaron spoke to all the people, and they pointed toward the desert, which was where the cloud was, and the glory of God appeared in this cloud. And God spoke to Moses, and he said, I heard the complaints of the Jewish people. Speak to them and say, Bein Arbaim, just before evening, Tochlu Basar, I'm going to give you meat. Ubaboker, in the morning, Tizbu Lechem, I'll give you bread that will satisfy you. And you're going to know that I am God. And what does it mean? In the evening, they're not going to have any time to prepare it. So therefore, it says, I'm going to give you meat. You won't have time to prepare it. In the morning, I'm going to give you early in the morning. You'll have time to prepare it. You're going to enjoy it. And it was so it was. In the evening, Vatala Slav. All of a sudden, there came up this Slav. What are Slav? They translated quails or something. Rashi says it's a type of bird. And it's very, very fat. But the Chassid Machane, and it covered the whole entire camp. You want meat? You got meat. Billions and millions, who knows, of these quails. Well, but Boker, in the morning, there was a layer of dew all around the camp. What is this layer of dew? It says there was dew that was on top of the man. And another place it says that the dew came first. So how did it work? The dew came second or first? So it says there was dew that came on the ground, and the man came down from heaven on it. And then afterwards, there was more dew on top of it. So the man was like resting in a box. And that's why it says on Shabbat that you're supposed to cover over the bread. You have the tablecloth is underneath, or you have the plate or whatever that's underneath the bread. And on top of it, you're supposed to cover it over also. That's one reason why you cover it over, because it's a reminder of the man. I mean, this is how the Jewish people knew when it was Shabbat. That's basically how we know it's Shabbat. How do we know it's Shabbat today? Maybe in the time that God gave the Torah. In the time when God created the world, so He didn't work on Shabbat, so they knew when Shabbat was. But it was a long time. It was a long time from the creation of the world until the Torah. It was already 2,000 whatever it is years. So 2,440 something years. So until they got out of Egypt, 2,448 years, I think, till they got out of Egypt. So in that time, maybe they could have forgotten when Shabbat was. So it says, no, when they were in Egypt, they knew. They kept when Shabbat was, it was given to them. Okay, but when they got out, they were in the desert, so you can't tell when Shabbat is. You can look at the sun, the moon, whatever you want to. You have no idea when Shabbat is. You don't know if the week is 7 days or it's 20 days or 7. So it says, how do they know? Because on Friday, they would come down a double portion. And they would know. On Shabbat didn't, so they'd know automatically when Shabbat was. And they would know when Friday was. Any case, what happened was there was dew came down, the manna came on top of it, and the dew came on top of that, and that was the manna. Okay, now there's a bunch of sentences that tell us exactly what happened and how it happened. It says that the upper covering of dew rose up, and we could see that it was like glittering, a dark sort of a color on the whole earth. And the Jewish people saw it, and they said, Manu, what is it? Ki lo yadu ma'hu, they didn't know what it was. They just called it man. The Omer Moshe said, Hu alechem, this is the bread that God is going to give you to eat. It says, Manu hachanat mazanu. This is prepared food. Like v'yaman, man is another word for food. Prepared food, whatever. Everybody should gather one omer legogolas. In the end of this whole business, they're going to translate. I hope we'll get to it. Another 20 sentences exactly how big this is, but it's the size of what we take nowadays challah from, which is like 43 eggs, something like that. 43 eggs which 43 eggs is something like 2 loaves of bread, about that big. Each and every person should take according to the number of souls that you have in your whole household. That's how many people there's going to be. So let's say the person, if there's a person in the, let's say there's a father, so he goes out and he gathers for 10 people in his family. He has 9 children and his wife, so he gathers enough for that many, but don't gather any more. That's the amount. It's actually a pretty big amount when it comes about an omer. It's about like the size of 2 loaves of bread, so that's pretty good for each and every person. Vayasu ken Yisrael, the Jewish people did so, and they gathered, and the one who took a lot, and they gathered up. What does it mean? Some people took a lot, some people took a little bit. When they came to their houses and measured it, they found that it was exactly the same amount. The one who took a lot, that's what it says. Says the one that took a lot, he didn't get any more than anybody else. And the one that took a little bit, he wasn't missing. He got the same amount as everybody else. Each person, according to his ability to eat, that's what they got. Moshe said, Ish al yosem mimenu boker. Whatever is left over, don't leave it over until the morning. Don't leave it until the morning. V'lo shamu Moshe, they didn't listen to Moses. V'yosiru anashim mimenu, and people left it over. Ad boker, v'yorom tolayim, and there was worms on it, and it got rotten. V'yiktsof aleim Moshe, and Moshe got mad. Who were the people that left it over until the morning? Right? Everybody says, Datan Aviram, the same 2 people. You're going to see that they go out and collect it on Shabbat also. And it rose up worms, and etc. And it got rotten. But the Jews gathered it every single morning. We didn't talk about the slav yet, the birds. That's going to be another story. They gathered it up every morning, according to the sun, whatever was left, the sun shined on it, and it melted. Whatever was left in the field, says Rashi, it melted, and it became rivers. And it says that there were wild animals like mountain goats and deers that ate it. And the non-Jews, the Gentiles, would hunt them, and they would taste the taste of man, and they would know they would know how amazing, praiseworthy the Jews are. Right? They would understand that God is doing a real big miracle for the Jewish people. Okay, here it comes. First Friday, Laktu Lecha Mishnah. Everybody went out and they gathered a double portion. Shnei Omer. When they went home, they measured it. Everybody got a double portion. And all of the leaders, and they came to Moses. Right? They said, okay, from here it says we learned that Moses did not tell them the thing about Shabbat that was commanded to them, Yom Shishi Echinu, until they asked this. When they asked this, then everybody said, hey, we went home, we got a double portion. Everybody has a double portion. And this is when Moses told them that that's what the law is going to be. Everybody on double. So you can gather so if everybody, even if they didn't gather a double portion, they still got a double portion. Doesn't make any difference. But you had to go out and gather it up. And Moses said to the elders, this is what God said. Shabbaton, Shabbat Kodesh. This is the holy day to God. Machar, tomorrow. This is on Friday they came. Whatever you bake, bake. Whatever you boil, boil. Whatever is left over, you can leave it over until the morning. In other words, eat it in the nighttime and in the morning. In the morning, in the Shabbat in the morning, bread is not going to fall. Usually it did fall down. No, it's not going to. So in other words, they would go out on Friday, they would gather it up, there would be enough for Friday in the morning, Friday in the evening, which is already Shabbat, and then there would be enough for also for all of Friday and for all of Shabbat also. Motzi Shabbat. Of course, there were some people that left it over. I'm sorry, everybody left it over in the morning, like God, like Moses commanded. In other words, they didn't throw it away or get rid of it like before. Below Yavish, and suddenly, when it was Shabbat in the daytime, it did not rot, and there were no worms in it. And Moses said, "Eat it today, because Shabbat is the day to God. Today you won't find it in the field. Don't go out Shabbat in the morning to pick bread. First of all, it's forbidden to go out and gather on Shabbat. And not only you don't have to, it's unnecessary. You've already got enough. Some people learn from here where you have to have 3 meals on Shabbat. Ichlu hayom, Shabbat hayom, hayom lo timsena b'sadeh. Some people learn from this third one that you don't have to have bread on the third meal. Today, lo, because it says today not, you won't find it. In any case, that's the 3 meals of Shabbat. Rashi says like this: in the morning, when they were used to go out and gathering it, Bolishol, they went to Moses and said, should we go out or not? Omer Lami said, Et shebiyadechem ochlu, eat whatever is left over. In the evening, and they came back and they said, should we go out? He said to them, no, it's still Shabbat. Re'otam doagim, maybe the man won't come down anymore next morning. And it was when it was getting near evening. He said to them, don't worry, today you're not going to find it in the field. What does it mean today? It means today you won't find it in the field, but tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, you will find it in the field. 6 days you should gather it up. On the 7th day, it's Shabbat to God, is going to be a Shabbat to God. Shabbat is, and the man won't be found on that day. It's just coming to tell you why. We already knew that already. Why? It's coming to tell you that Yom Kippur and the holidays also, man did not fall on those days either. Not only on Shabbat did it not fall, but it did not fall also on Yom Kippur and all of the other holidays it did not fall. But Yom Shvi, and sure enough, here it came. Shabbat came. Moses said, don't gather it. And some people went out to gather it. But they didn't find it. Who would go out? Who would do a thing like that? Vayomer Hashem, God said to Moses, until how long is it going to be that you don't listen to my commandments? I told you not to go out on Shabbat. Why did people go out on Shabbat and look for it? And we're going to see that this was Datan and Aviram, the same two. Look, God gave you the Shabbat. Therefore, He gave on Friday, lechem yomayim, double portion of bread. Shavu ishlach tav, every person should just sit in his place. Al yetzeh ish mokomo b'yom hashvi. No one should go out from his place on Shabbat, on Yom Shvi, on the Shabbat. What does it mean? From here, the rabbis say that every person has 4 amas that he can move on. An amma is like, what is it? An amma is like 6.5 feet. Sorry, 1 second. An amma is 1.5 feet. 4 amas is 6.5 feet. That's dalet amas. So every person has 4.5 feet all around him. And some say that no, it means 4.5 feet like a box. So you actually have the corners of the box are even more. In any case, everyone has only a certain area around him that he's allowed to move. Let's say if you go too far out from the city, if you go too far, like into a field, so you only have that measure around you. You have 3 for your body and 2 spreading out your arms and your feet. That's how you measure the 4 amas that everybody has. So it says like this: a person, there's the law which is called Eruvin, and Eruv Techumim. A person is not allowed to walk outside of the city where he is on Shabbat it's forbidden. It says 2,000 amos of Techum Shabbat. This is from the Torah. It's forbidden to go. Al Yetze Ish Makomo. A person is not allowed to go more than 2,000 amos, which, what do we say an amos? A foot and a half. So it means like 3,000 feet from the outer boundary of your city. The laws are complicated, but that's basically what it is. And if you do happen to go further than that, and you're in a field somewhere, so all you have is just like 6 feet all around you in each direction, you have to walk. Okay, according to Rashi, it says that this idea of these 2,000 amos, this is only from the rabbis. The thing is, the main thing is, this is talking about gathering the man. That Moses said a lot of times the man was more than 2,000 amos out. So you don't go and gather it up on Shabbat. And the people rested on the Yom Shvi. And the Jewish people called it man. And it was something like this, it's like God seed. It was white. Anyway, whatever the color was, Rashi says it was some sort of a round seed. And the man was, but it wasn't, unlike this coriander, he says coriander, this is not white, but at least the shape. Man was like sort of round, but it was white. Man was white, yes. Coriander is not. And the only reason it's called Zeragad, this coriander seed, is because it's round. Okay, anyway, it was like something like little like balls of dew or something like that, and they would put it all together and they could eat it. Moses said, "This is the thing which God is commanding you. Fill up." I would say, God said, "This is the thing which God has commanded. Let us fill one vessel of Omer of man for remembrance that this is the bread that the Jewish people ate in the desert when we took them out of Egypt." It says that in the future, whenever the Jewish people would complain, it says in the days of Yirmiyahu, when the people were complaining, so he would take out this bottle of man, he would say, "See, God will provide for you. God cares about you, he loves you, and he'll provide for you to stop complaining." Of course, it didn't work. The first temple was destroyed. Moses said to Aaron, "Take this vessel, one, and put inside of it full of a Omer man, and put it in front of God, and it was in the holy temple for a mishmer." What does it mean? In front of the ark in the holy temple, in the ark, and right, put in an ark. And like God, and that's what they did, like God commanded Moshe, they put it in the ark. But the Jewish people ate the man for 40 years until they came into the land of Israel. The man they ate until they came into the edge of the land of Canaan. So this is pretty interesting. The man weighed 20 ephah, it was. And then after this, we're talking about the Moses striking the rock, but we won't have time to do this. Well, God willing, we'll do this tomorrow. But let's just do this very quickly here. We have, they ate it 40 years. What does it mean they ate it 40 years? The whole time they were in the desert. When did the man stop? So it says like this. Rashi says, well, if you make a computation, you'll see that it didn't exactly come down for 40 years. It began on the 15th day of Iyar. In other words, the man started falling 1 month after the Jews left Egypt. And it ended on Passover, of Nisan, when they got in. In other words, the Jews went into Israel on the 10th day of Nisan, 40 years after they left Egypt. The date the Jews entered Israel was the 10th day of Nisan. In other words, 5 days before Passover. They entered into Israel. And 5 days, and on Passover, the 15th day of Nisan, that's when the manna stopped. Shene'amar, like it says, Vayishpot aman mimacharat. It says there's in the book of Joshua. So it didn't really come down 40 years. It came down for 40 years minus 1 month. But you have to be accurate. So why does it say 40 years? It's coming to tell you that the bread, the matzah, or whatever, the dough that they took out of Egypt, it had the taste of man. It had the taste of man. So for practical purposes, it was. And what did the man taste like? It tasted like anything you wanted to do. They married over at the Yarden. After the Jewish people crossed over the Jordan River, they ate the man for 5 days, and then so 1 second. Here it says that the the man stopped 5 days after they went into the land of Israel, and then the sentence says no, it stopped before they went into the land of Israel, before they crossed over the Jordan River. The man stopped 40 years after it started. So the sentence that says Nimsu Machishim, it seems that the Torah contradicts itself. It says, when did exactly it stop? So it says, it's not contradicting itself. Before they went over the sea, when Moses died on the 7th day of Adar, the man stopped. But there was still a great amount of it that was left, that they gathered on the day that Moses died. Whatever they gathered lasted for a month and 10 days. And so until they brought the Omer on the 16th day of Nisan. So it comes out the Yochel Ma'avura Oretz Mimachrot Pesach. So it ended up that they ate the man until 5 days after they entered into the land of Israel. But the man stopped falling down over a month before they entered Israel. A little bit before a month. 3 days before a month. Anyway, a month before they came into Israel, the man stopped falling, but there was still a lot left. It didn't evaporate in the morning on that last day. It lasted for a month, and that's how it explains the man. And tomorrow we're going to learn about the Moses striking the rock, the Jewish people complaining. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all tomorrow, 8:15.